right. Hello and welcome to Bigskybits. I'm your host Colby, and today we'll be going over what's affecting Bitcoin in the world today and how is Bitcoin going to affect your life in the world today. We got a lot of interesting news, nothing too crazy with the price, nothing too crazy in the political sense, but we have a lot of news going on as always. As Bitcoin continues to grow, we see more and more involvement in every aspect. Different countries, states, different protocol changes. We're just seeing news on every level, and it's starting to become more prevalent. So with that, if you like this content and want to see more of it, please hit the like or subscribe buttons. Head over to YouTube or Rumble and get an idea of some of what we have to offer. You can also head over to the website and look at some of the most recent episodes and articles. And with that, let's quickly move into the price action. The price action, Bitcoin's sitting right under $104,000, kind of maintaining a little bit of stability over the last day or so. When we look at a 7-day graph, kind of right in this range of 102 to 105, maybe even a hair lower, 101 to 105. But regardless, we're staying above 100,000 for now. I would not be surprised if we slip to 100,000 or jump up to 112. Something right above all-time highs. I could see us going either way, and that's mainly market trading. But the trend is your friend, and I think for at least the next couple months, we will continue to see this upward trend, probably into that 120, 150,000. It'll be hard to see. We'll have to kind of watch the momentum and how this is all playing out. I've heard a lot of different top prices from 130, 150, all the way up to 400,000, with a couple right in that middle $250,000 range. I like to stay a little more on the reserve side, and I think 150, 180 is a good idea of where we could land. Now, in regard to that, like I've said in many episodes, it's not so much about the speculative price action that really worries me. And sure, you can try to time things, get in and out, and get more Bitcoin. But there will come a day when these markets end and you might get severely diminish your returns in terms of Bitcoin. You might make a lot of US dollars, but let's say you sell one Bitcoin, you may never get more than half of that Bitcoin back. So in terms of Bitcoin, you might lose out greatly. And this is one of those long-term things that we'll just have to wait and see if it does hold true. Now, the big news recently has been the op return. And yesterday we touched on this, but we'll go into it a little more in depth. And actually today over on Reddit, we saw a few good good replies to it, because a lot of people don't understand it, and a lot of people can summarize it a bit better than I was able to. I guess the big thing comes down to the most uprated comment, and he puts it pretty precisely when he says, Bitcoin core developers argue that those who want to include the extra data and their ticks are finding workarounds. So the people that want to put this extra data onto the Bitcoin blockchain are already finding workarounds. And a lot of this came when we allowed Taproot to occur. Some of these extra workarounds became more apparent. Now, as we'll get into it, I do think a lot of people are realizing that because of Bitcoin's fee structure, spamming the system with unneeded data really doesn't help you or anyone else. The reason this happened on a lot of other chains is because they don't have aggressive fee structure. They say that the cheap transaction cost is what makes their protocol like Solana or Ethereum better than Bitcoin. But as we've seen, they've only been used to spam garbage, basically. Anyone can create this garbage, and we've seen a lot of meme coins, a lot of scams, a lot of things that really don't produce any value. So when you go into looking at these upgrades, just take in the overall market. And the main thing I believe that we need to constantly remind ourselves is that decentralization and censorship resistance are probably the two most important aspects of Bitcoin. Being able to have the security has to come paramount to speed or any of the other attributes that people feel that their coin does better or their project does better or their government issued CBDC or whatever it may be. Security and privacy should not take a backseat to speed or malleability. So, and that's just my opinion on this. But getting back into this argument, the opposition argues that this type of bloat and spam will be allowed on the blockchain, defeats the purpose of Bitcoin being purely intended as a money, and it threatens its values. And this is what I get to, too. I believe that a lot of these other uses of Bitcoin, such as putting NFTs or other things on the blockchain, really do go against the core ethical values. Now, on the other side of that, people can do whatever they want with their money. In the real world, we see artists turn fiat money into art all the time, literally destroying it just to turn it into art. So I'd rather have people do with their money as they wish, but we should all take a bit of due diligence in looking into this. Now, some good clarifications, like in the second one, the software hasn't changed. It's only a proposal at this point. And it really doesn't stop you from accepting blocks with it. It only stops nodes from accepting such transactions in their local meme pool. So there's going to be this whole argument about censorship and who can censor blocks within Bitcoin. And we've already seen this argument play out once before when a whole bunch of larger third-party companies pooled together and wanted to refuse certain blocks. But that puts them at a disadvantage, missing out on profitable blocks, and incentivizes the people pooling with them to go to other pools that might not censor. So Bitcoin's shown its resilience over this time, and I just want everyone out there to just try to keep an eye on things. Bitcoin is evolving. It'll evolve with what we as society need, and what we're determining we don't need is the centralization and power grab and money printing that has occurred under our current government-controlled fiat. Now, people will argue that maybe some of these systems are good. Maybe the government's ability to print money at will allows them to put resources where they think. But it also invites a ton of corruption and a ton of other issues. So we have to take and weigh all the positives and benefits. And until this point, we really haven't had a good contender to even go against the fiat system. And Bitcoin, I feel, is this contender, and it needs to have its day in the fight. And we're seeing how it's working out as we currently speak. So if you want to do more research onto the op return, I feel very confident in telling people, go over to some of this Reddit, look at some of these returns. The community's decently good at upvoting the most accurate, at least in the Bitcoin Reddit. A lot of other Reddit subforums are getting horribly biased and political. But for the most part, especially when it comes to technical things, the community tries to uplift the better sentiments. Now, one thing we have seen in more recent days is floods of bots trying to sway sentiment. And we've seen, especially on Reddit, there was an article not too long ago about, I believe it was a Swedish group that did some interesting things with bots on Reddit trying to persuade people to different political views. And it showed that the bots were very effective in changing people. Because if you have a plethora of people and they all debate it back and forth, but kind of only argue certain points, they can really drive a narrative. And that is one problem, and why we probably need the Bitcoin internet that is going to evolve. The problem with the Bitcoin internet for how you use the internet today is there will be fees associated with everything. So to spam thousands of bots is going to cost you a lot of money. But also to make that post you want to make will cost you some cents. But are you spamming a network with millions of transactions? Or do you want an internet that you understand the value and you're willing to pay and participate in that? That debate will be soon happening. So watch as the internet changes. Watch as Bitcoin transforms the financial world. Please leave some comments if you disagree or if you agree, and let me know your thoughts on how this can all play out. Moving over some of the top stories, we have seen another victory for the Bitcoiners against Craig Wright, the scammer. A UK High Court slammed the brakes on Craig Wright, issuing a 3-year restraining order to stop his flood of lawsuits. And this is what Craig Wright has done. For many years, him and his money, what was Calvin Ayers, or can't remember. He had a partner who was a very wealthy individual, and they basically weaponized the courts, as it says, against a lot of these people, against other YouTubers, against other journalists, just trying to talk about Craig Wright's assertion that he was Satoshi. And you could tell right away from the ethical and the moral standpoints and why Bitcoin was created, that how Craig Wright spoke about finance, how Craig Wright spoke about the world. There was no way these two humans could ever be the same. The ideological differences were so vast that, in my opinion, there was no doubt from the very beginning of the days that he could ever be Satoshi. And I'm happy the UK courts have finally started to agree with that. But we also have to remember the UK courts were the ones who censored the white paper, the Bitcoin white paper, from even showing up in the UK. People had to hide this. It was like it was a horrible document that couldn't be disseminated throughout society. It had to be watched under lock and key, and only the UK courts could decide who could see it. It was horrible. And I'm happy to see that justice is prevailing and people are realizing the truth. Another thing is Eric Trump's American Bitcoin is going to be entered into the NASDAQ. It's going to be a new Bitcoin company focused on some digital mining. Sometimes, what else did I hear? They're going to try to do some treasury stuff very similar to MicroStrategy's. We'll have to see what their plans on. I'm happy they're mining in the US, but are they going to create their own ASICs? This is a big thing. If we want America to be a leader in the Bitcoin game, the machines that mine Bitcoin will need to be created here. And we're seeing a lot of creative. I mean, in one episode, we talked about the hot water heaters that are using Bitcoin as the underlying component. It's very interesting technology that's evolving, and I hope it does come more to the U.S. We'll see what this brings. He is also going to be speaking, I heard, or maybe it was his brother, at the Bitcoin 2025 conference in Las Vegas. And then we see another treasury company getting started that'll accumulate Bitcoin. I think we'll see more and more of this. Yeah. There's just a lot more crypto, Bitcoin adoption. We're seeing it in Africa. We're seeing it in South America. We're seeing it nationwide. We're seeing states slowly adopt it. With that, these are a lot of the main stories going on today, and it's just a lot of positive news that Bitcoin adoption is growing. Bitcoin is entering a more stable financial realm. More serious contenders are looking at it. When we switch over to the meme pool, fees have recently been very low, especially with some of the volatility. allowing people to consolidate their UTXOs and smaller amounts, put them together. Right now, it looks like we're in the 2-3 range, maybe even 4. So maybe it's a sign things are about to pick up. You can see this huge jump. What is this? Early in this morning. A lot more transactions. So we'll just have to wait and see. It looks like we're seeing a decent spread of who is finding these. So that's good. We got quite a few different pools. Still could use ever more. The more pools, the better. The more diverse the underlying infrastructure, the mining, the nodes, the better. We just want more of all of it. So with that, we'll also talk quickly. There's going to be an inflation report that came out early today. It looked good. I haven't had time to review it much. We'll talk a little more about that tomorrow. But if inflation's going down and people start getting more money, the stock market's back up after some of the trade and tariff deals in the last day or so. If people feel they have extra money, I think Bitcoin could see it become a good recipient of this money, and it could do really well. The last thing, talking about the S&P with American Bitcoin by the Trumps, is Coinbase has now just been accepted into the S&P 500, displacing Discover Financial Services. I'll have to look into that a little more. They did say that was owned by the Chase Group, and I wonder if that's part of the Discover Card or part of the Discover Card group. So that'd be very interesting if the traditional fiat financial group was delisted from the S&P 500 only for a crypto-based Bitcoin company, Coinbase, to be accepted. Another interesting article with regards to Coinbase is yesterday they said they had considered a Bitcoin strategic reserve many years ago, and the board members and everyone decided against it. Man, would that not have been a very profitable endeavor for Coinbase to get into. By issuing shares and having a Bitcoin reserve, they'd pump it in two ways. They'd help themselves as well as making Bitcoin more scarce. So Coinbase missed out on it, instead promoted a lot of shitcoins, and I guess we see the result. Not like they're struggling or anything. Coinbase is doing very well, but could have been doing better. So remember, Bitcoin's the key. The rest of this stuff is gambling, and Coinbase is a shitcoin casino for the most part. So with that, everyone, take everything with a grain of salt. Do your own research. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you soon.